Good evening, everybody, and welcome to council. It is 7 o'clock.
Evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Wait for us to be live streaming. I think we're there. There are no members of the public in the building or on Zoom, so we'll move straight on to apologies for absence.
Councillor Schaefer and Councillor Ossie-Bowman's going to be there.
Yes, excellent, thank you. And any declarations of interest at this point? No. So we've got a lot of minutes to go through. So the first is full council on the 28th of November. Are you happy with those? Yep. The 24th of November, of January. Great. The 30th of January. Great. An interim on the 7th of November. Great. And the 9th of January. Great. And the precept on the 30th of January. Great. And then we go on to planning committee, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. There are 4 of them there. If we could approve them en bloc, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And town centre events.
2 seconds a minute to agree, which I agree. Well, note, which of December, February, but just to remind everybody here, if you haven't bought your tickets, there's a comedy night this weekend, and I hope to see you all there. And it's nothing like we need a bit of humour. So if you haven't bought the ticket, there's an opportunity to get out there and buy them, and make it so that we can have a comedy night again. I know some members around here actually support it from the beginning, so hopefully that those who haven't.
Thank you, Mr. Stuchbury. Item 8, Environment Committee. Ryan.
Thank you very much. I'd like to present the minutes of the Environment Committee meetings held on the 31st of October 2022, 19th of December 2022, and 20th of February 2023.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. And resources, Lisa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll present the 14th of November 2022 and the 16th of January 2023 minutes for members to agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And item 10, Councillor Stuchbury.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Before putting this motion to this council, I have done many questions, attended many meetings and asked many questions beforehand. But nothing has been so irritating for all of us around this council, the lack of provision of health contributions. Hence why the motion is here. It is proposed that Buckingham Town Council includes within its local neighbourhood plan draft policies to cover the health provision and contributions in any section 106 Cllr or CEL or similar agreements in the future development. Consider the historical experience in respect to the lack of contributions from developments within the parish of Buckingham not being forthcoming. We would expect that any property development, site development in Buckingham would contribute to health provision within the town, so on and so on. It is envisaged that the addition of the policy within the Buckingham neighbourhood plan would allow close cooperation and working in arrangements with Buckinghamshire Council to ensure this takes place. Importantly, it should be the case that such funds can be accrued and avoid piecemeal applications to this and so on and so on. Well, you all have discussed this endlessly in council, and it's important that we, I hope it's important that people will agree with the motion that we need to include this in our plan. Now, how that works out going along is not going to be in exact science, but to draw a line on the land and to draw a line in the sand that we don't really want to carry on forth with this situation. And we know not what the future will hold. What we do know is what the past has delivered, which is nothing. So I'm hoping that this motion will be agreed and then be able to our officers to work through the policy, in which case come back with policies through the neighbourhood plan, in which case you'll all get a chance to discuss it again. Thank you.
Councillor Stuchbury. Do we have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Davies, I saw first. Does anybody want to discuss this? Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Stuchbury, for your very worthy motion. As Robin's pointed out, we have had time and time again so many problems trying to get any provision for health. It's totally unbalanced. South of the county is on community infrastructure levy, which automatically includes health provision. We're stuck in the north on section 106, which doesn't include health provision. And the last three developments, major developments we've been involved in, each time when the clinical commissioning group of the day, and there have been many of them over the last 7 or 8 years, has failed to give evidence to Buckinghamshire Council, or previously ABDC, to trigger any health provision. So this, for that reason, this is a very worthy motion. We are already in the neighbourhood plan working group working on this, but I am going to ask for one slight amendment in the second paragraph, where it says we would expect any property development in site in Buckingham to include a contribution to health provision. I'd ask that reads, we would expect any property development site of more than X dwellings. We can't expect someone who's self-building a house to put section 106 money in, maybe even 2 houses, but at a time to be determined, we can, when we set the neighbourhood plan, there should be a minimum that triggers section 106. But the way it reads at the moment, anyone building anything in Buckingham would be liable to it. Thank you.
Do we want to discuss that first?
I'm happy if it makes things easier. It's a sensible amendment, and there are figures which will come out of discussions, which is an appropriate thing in legislation. And I think what you said is correct. So what we don't want to do is say something we can't do. And I think what you said is timely and weighted, and that will allow us to use it. Probably be something around similar to what we've got with affordable housing type things. We don't know what it will be, but we'll find out what it is. And I think wise words and better we get things in a line before we travel on the journey. Thank you.
Can you second in? I'm happy to second that.
Second amendment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but do we need to actually put a figure?
I deliberately said X. That's something we can decide
Okay.
when the time comes.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor White.
Thank you. As I've been said, this is a very well-meaning motion, and I'm more than happy to support the general gist of it. But there is another minor amendment that I would suggest to make it read somewhat better and give us actually something useful to do. I mean, I've reported back to this council several times some of the work that I and other Buckinghamshire councillors have been doing to try and get NHS England and the CCG and its successors to deal with health provision in the Buckingham area. But at the moment, the motion is a bit broad, and what this could achieve is a wedge of money being sent down to Stoke Mandeville to do some lovely stuff at the hospital, but not fix primary care. And when I speak to people and I see the issues up in North Bucks are access to dental care and access to primary care and access to community NHS services. So I think we need to be much more specific about this, because we could be, if this was to happen, could be sending loads of money down to Aylesbury to make Stoke Mandeville even better, which would be nice. But actually, we know around this table the issues are here in Buckingham. The population growth in North Bucks, meaning our primary care services needs that support. The second issue I've got is that Buckinghamshire Council has no role in this. They have no levers to make NHS England deliver this. NHS England and its agencies, i.e. the CCG and Bob, the ICS, are the ones that have to have a property strategy to provide the evidence to then get the money in Cllr or section 106. And it's erroneous to keep on going on about that Cllr. That's a red herring. South Bucks still has its issues of getting primary care services as well. I know plenty of places in South Bucks that are crying out for the money. Cllr does not deliver healthcare provision unless NHS England and the CCG have got a property strategy. Oxfordshire CCG has one, and they're able to deliver. But the way I've seen in Bicester, that isn't the guarantee you might think it is. So there needs to be a bit more fine tuning in this, and without really working too hard on it, I would suggest that as Buckinghamshire Council, and NHS England and the appropriate NHS agencies in the locality, because without speaking to them, we're wasting our time. I would also mention that we also need to make sure that they provide the evidence to prove that they need to support healthcare development in Buckingham and the surrounding area, because without that evidence, they will not put a penny forward from NHS England, and they will not be able to legally get Section 106 out of a developer if there's no evidence to show it. Now, it could be really easy to prepare that evidence because we have population growth very well evidenced. We know there are issues of getting access to NHS dentistry and access to our doctors. So I'm sure the evidence will be really easy to do, but without making sure NHS in whatever capacity needs to be is included in this motion is pointless. So my amendment is to, as I suggested in the second paragraph, third paragraph, where it says Buckinghamshire Council, it actually should be NHS England and the relevant parts of the NHS that work locally and regionally, and Buckinghamshire Council. And then we've got a chance to make this happen.
Have you got a seconder for that?
I just respond to memory. I actually have no problem in at all accepting what Warren said. It's why the emotion's here. It's here for discussion. The great thing about councils, we all can improve something, make it better, and we're all on the same side on this. And I think what Warren said, I'm very happy to accept that into the amendment. What I can say is I will be joining Bob, so I could be an irritant there. And so they'll be pleased to have me. So and I do sit on House and Scrutiny, and I have questioned the very people the same as Councillor White had on numerous cards. And to be honest, he's absolutely right. The NHS are coming up empty with their responses, and the council is absolutely right in the sense that the council can't actually, in the present legislation, lobby against them. I was trying not to make it too wordy, but and it was meant to be really simple, but actually the discussion's making for a better motion, and if we all move together in one direction, we can possibly, and it's only possibly, make the world a better place for tomorrow. What we can't do is about what's happened in the past. So I'm happy to include those, if my seconder is happy to include those, that they go into the motion, so we don't need, then we could vote on it as a substantive motion as any other members, in which case we'll take them next.
I'll take Councillor Mordew next, and then Councillor O'Donoghue.
Thank you. As you know, I've been involved in trying to get the medical centre to Lace Hills for since about 2008. And in the various aspects of that planning commission, the problem at the moment is the funding issue, and that does lie with NHS England. And business case was made, but they still not have ratified the actual agreement, which would provide the means of building. And by the time they actually do, it'll probably run out, my guess. There is a provision within Section 5 of our local plan that monies can be asked from the developer for healthcare or anything to do with infrastructure, where a development could cause it problems on its size and so on. The council cannot, the planning authority can ask for contributory funding for healthcare provision. One of the problems is healthcare provision. Now, what is healthcare provision? It covers lots of things, and that is a problem with NHS England. It's all different pots of money. So if you decide that you want to have mental health increase in Buckingham, and you ask for it to be part of a 106 agreement with a developer, you can't then use that for clinical purposes because it's been earmarked. Otherwise, what happens is, and it's happened not so much in healthcare, but other aspects, the developer asks for the money back. So unless you have a watertight case of a 106 agreement, that money that's been earmarked will go back to the developer and you'll lose any benefit. And that's one of the problems. You know, I do sympathise with Councillor Stuchbury's case, but if you make it too watertight, and at the end of the day, we are not the planning authority. We give advice on local issues, and Buckinghamshire Council is the planning authority. You can advise and you can ask that healthcare provision be made, say on a new estate that's going to be built. But we can't impose it, and it's rather like the police have to do, if they're asked to put in a speeding restriction, it's only as good as if it's enforceable.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems with having watertight resolutions. Lawyers make a fortune out of watertight resolutions. Fortune counts, Earthy Bogle isn't here. I'm very sympathetic to resolution. I'm sympathetic to getting money for healthcare, but we've got to be careful of not tying it down too much where it becomes meaningless when it gets down to actually imposing a resolution on the developer. As Councillor Stuchbury said, we have 106 up here and we have Cllr down south. That's legacy of the district councils. The new Buckinghamshire plan is under consideration, and although they haven't got to that stage yet, quite like that will become a Cllr, but we don't know. So I'm a bit torn between agreeing to this, knowing that it will have no meaning whatsoever, and it could in fact hinder planning and getting help, to just saying not voting again, voting for it. And I think I'll abstain in the end of the day because it won't work.
Thank you. Councillor O'Donoghue.
Thank you, Mayor. I wondered what the other bit of wording that Councillor White could add in to make it Buckingham so that it doesn't go down to Stoke Mandeville, for example. You didn't mention anything about that. Do you think of anything?
I think he said it. I think he, I hope that it was taken down. I listened to him very carefully.
I'll ask.
I think he covered most of the aspects, which I thought he would do.
Can we let the chairman chair?
I know what Lisa saying is that Councillor White initially said motions to go we need to be more specific regarding Buckingham. And then the amended suggestion in paragraph 3 is that Buckinghamshire Council, the NHS England and relevant parts of the NHS that work locally and regionally. In addition to paragraph 3.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. In regards to Councillor Mordew's points that it's making it too watertight, I'm reading it as it's asking for draft policies to cover health provision contribution in any section 106. I don't read that as being watertight. I believe that as being an outline, just guidelines for us to work to when we're considering any future plans and developments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My understanding is it's to do with the neighbourhood plan as well.
Yeah.
That aspect of the neighbourhood plan. Councillor Hetherington, then Councillor Harvey.
Well, I'm really happy to support anything which could, in particular, get us this health centre that we've been so patiently waiting for. I myself fell foul of the system today. The NHS asked me to go and have an old person's health check, but there was no space for it in Buckingham. I had to traipse all the way off the steeple Claydon. So how good an idea was that for asking older people to go there, many of whom perhaps don't even have any transport. So yes, very happy to support anything that might help us get that. But it's all about so much more than healthcare, which is all that we can ask for in the neighbourhood plan. But the Buckingham Society told me that in the 10 years up to 2021, in fact, the population increase in Buckingham was 18%. In the preceding 10 years, it had been 3%. So all of our services are in extreme stress at the moment. And I believe it's actually part of the new London overspill that we're actually trying to deal with. And really, this is something that goes all the way back to government. I don't know if there's any way that we can be pressing government on to help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey, then, Martin. And then I think we need to go for vote. Sorry,
Just to pick up on what Councillor White was saying, I think you were suggesting, Warren, that after contribution, which is in the second paragraph, third line, it should be to Buckingham primary care, including dental and community services. I think we insert those words in there.
That work, yeah.
Would that work? Yeah, okay. That's it. That makes it very local to us.
Yeah.
It's primary care, which ordinarily people think as, practice nurses, GPs, and everything else. But if we say dental and community services, that includes Buckingham. And obviously we know that for Buckingham means it will be allowed, but we are Buckingham Town Council.
Yep.
So is that okay? But I'm proposing that to the meeting and to the motion proposer and seconder. If they're happy with that, then that goes into.
I'll think at the end, but
Yeah.
I don't speak again.
I'm sure we're all in agreement that something needs to be done to make primary care in Buckingham better. Councillor Tribe.
I think as we've all said, we're all in favour of this in one way or another. It's just the detail. I'm not too worried about the detail at the moment. We are revising our neighbourhood plan at the moment. We have what's the word? Sorry?
Consensus.
Consultants.
Oh, consultants.
Yes. Helping us, which I think are going to bring in, it's very much evidence-based. We need to put in a lot of evidence. And I think this is what has been said around here as well. So I'm hanging my hat on the draft policies because we're not going to thrash it out now. We can put some words in that we would like to see, but they've got to go away, be thrashed out, come back again, and then taken by us all. So I'm very much, like has been said, this is draft policies, it's the motion for draft policies, and then we can work it out and thrash it out at a later date. But some good wording is coming out right now anyway.
Thank you very much.
I'll just respond. I'm happy. I think really what Councillor Harvey was saying was very close to what Councillor White proposed. And I think you're both in agreement around that. Am I correct in the sense of that it is? And I think before we actually vote on it, we should read it back amended. And I'm happy to take amendments because this isn't about, it was something that frustrating. Furthermore, that I do realise this is a Buckinghamshire issue, but we're not here, we're just dealing with the local plan, Buckinghamshire Council, and what we've got to do. And we know that it will be a difficult journey, but we have to make a start. And if without making a start, we're not going to have a journey. And I hope that if we vote on it when it's read back to us, that we have a recorded vote, and that we, and if it's appropriate and the members agree, secondly, that we actually make a statement through the mayor about our intentions to include this in the neighbourhood plan.
Thank you. You read back the whole letter.
Yeah, but I think it's important.
I have to check with Councillor Harvey, exactly where the Buckingham primary care including dental community services going in that first paragraph.
The second paragraph, after the word contribution. So instead of saying contribution to health provision, we should say to Buckingham primary care bracket, including dental and community services and bracket.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Sure.
Line 3.
So line 3, after the word contribution, delete to health provision and instead insert to Buckingham primary care, bracket, including dental and community services, end bracket, and then carry on as is. Two.
Okay, so making garden health provision in future development. Motion is it is proposed that Buckingham County Council include within its local neighbourhood plan draft policies to cover a health provision contribution in any S106 SIL or similar agreements in all future developments. Considering the historical experience in respect to the lack of contributions of parish of Buckingham not being forthcoming, we would expect any property development site in Buckingham to include a contribution to Buckingham primary care, including dental and community services, thus mitigating the additional burden imposed on primary health care by the additional residents created by any such developments. This is envisaged the addition of this policy to the Buckingham Neighbourhood Development Plan to allow close collaborative working arrangement, Buckinghamshire Council and NHS England and the relevant parts of the NHS that work very regionally to ensure this takes place. Importantly, it should be the case that such a thing can be approved, avoiding a piecemeal scenario, so necessary finances available and in place to meet the community's health needs and provision in the future.
I think you missed Councillor Cole's
Yeah.
addition, development site of X.
The second paragraph,
Yeah.
development site of more than X dwellings.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you, Paul.
And Councillor Davies.
I think we've got a double negative in that considering the historical experience in respect of the lack of contributions, not being forthcoming.
Yes. Right. So we need to get rid of the not.
I'd say it was the lack, really.
Yeah. Respect of contributions,
Right.
In respect of contributions,
not being forthcoming,
yeah, leave out that.
yeah.
Oh, and so all the contributions there. Okay.
Yeah, delete the lack.
Is everybody clear now? Can we vote then? Those in favour of this motion?
Are we having a recorded vote?
Recorded vote.
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
requested. Those in favour?
That is, you know.
Unanimous.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Councillor Stuchbury, for raising this, because I know it's something that people locally are very energised about.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I thank the contributions made this evening to make the motion better, improved and more correctly dealt with. That's really what council should do.
Thank you. Moving on, item 11, to receive and question report from Buckinghamshire Council Councillors. So I was going to do it alphabetically, but Addy's not here, so we'll move to Howard. By first name, I was. So.
Makes the words.
Well, all of the, Robin and Sop were notified about the mistake that's made in the parking. Notice regarding one, but all in the reason why I contacted the officer, and they came back, it's because it used to be District Council, so they're still that's why the mistake came in. I've been sit on the parking consultative group, looking at all the parking within Buckinghamshire. The increases which are going through are inflationary ones which don't require council approval. So there's been meetings around that. There's HAZAC meetings, council meetings. I moved from one axis to another, and I don't tend to take notice about what's happening, but I'm always there to solve problems, which is what I do with the villages. I don't go around looking for work or trying to get photos taken and just deal with problems, which might be a problem involving, as it was on Edge Hill on Morton Avenue, where children were swinging on a rope. I love to see children playing outdoors, and we all do. But when you have 3 cases referred to Milton Keynes Hospital for broken limbs,
Oh, God.
we are not in the process of a job credit fee for Milton Keynes Hospital. So hopefully I have to answer that was taken down. It was. I tried to get a zip wire put in, but it wasn't considered suitable or safe. And there's all sorts of things that go on a day-to-day basis. And then go on all councils. I'll leave it to Robin.
Thank you. No, Robin.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, been busy. Tomorrow I could be at cabinet, following up some work to do with special education and need as a dyslexia. I'm quite interested in special education and need. In the forthcoming months, I've been, well, since the last meeting, I've attended Buckinghamshire budget scrutiny. I attended all the budget scrutiny meetings apart from some sessions when I had additional meetings. And how it is correct that the actual raise and car parking charges is a decisional thing, nothing we can discuss because it can be done. I've attended several fire authority meetings where you realise that you don't have council tax days, the fire authority set the council tax. I've attended audit in the fire authority. I've attended various meetings to do with health and scrutiny. I've attended questions to select committee and committees asked about towards information in the sense that about the funding, which is not that great. And I've also said if parking charges. I also have been questioned about the lack, which I think I gave this to the Mark's committee about serious strange, and the legislation was given the fact that there's a limit to what we could do. And clearly, I'll carry on going to various committees. I'm going later in the week to follow up in the Education Select Committee because I worked on a report in myself in 2014, and I'm quite interested to find out from officers why there hasn't been any movement in the narrowing the gap in education and looking for an explanation why where we are. It's not, there's no really good reason for that. I'm also had a response to do with archaeology on the Children Road. Those who are not on planning, without using company names, apparently they're now doing the DNA and they're now looking at the bodies in a professional way, and they're examining them to find out what the history of them is and whatever. And of course, that will take some considerable time, I can imagine, with the amount of bodies that there are there. But considering this is something I think all of us on this council are interested in, that will come back and the report will come back here and I expect to be made public, in which case we can all share the information and who knows what it will tell us for the history of Buckingham. But I think to be fair to archaeology department in Buckinghamshire Council, there's not any obvious, wasn't any obvious way to do this, and they work very quietly and very cogently and very professionally to try and get this done. And I think when it's all done, I think we should write to them and thank them in archaeology, because without their diligence on this and their persistence in trying to bring this forward, it may have sat there for a long time. Yes, one's questioned it and other people have as well, but it will make a huge difference to the way Buckinghamshire works and the way that we know what the history of our town is. And as I joked at the time, I'm quite interested on a personal basis. I haven't offered my own DNA yet, but there's could be a chance, as I said once, that my family are responsible for one end of it or the other, because we've been around a long time. But I hope that's okay. I did send to the clerk an email today with some of the things that I've actually been doing. If members want it, they can email the clerk and verify everything I've said against what I've said for evidence-based purposes. But you may not want to do that. You've probably got a life, but but you know, it is there for you to do. I hope that wasn't too long.
Thank you, Councillor Stuchbury. Warren.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for Councillor Stuchbury for doing some casework in the other ward of Buckingham. I have told him before that I've been working on this, so it is a bit irritating that he's still ploughing on without keeping the actual ward members in the loop. It would be nice if we could avoid that, to stop wasting time with officers at the council. Anyway, some things that haven't been mentioned yet. The government have been listening and heard that Shire roads around the southeast have really been hit this winter, and we have been awarded another £2 million, which is very welcome to help get the roads back on track. I was in Steeple Claydon earlier And some of the roads around there with East West Rail and HS2 as well, it really is quite bad. I'm also very grateful to our MP who has been working very hard and getting a solid commitment out of East West Rail, that they will be sorting out some of those roads as well this year. So that can't come soon enough. I've been continuing to trace up the education department on how they're going to be doing school place planning, given our population increase. And I'm pleased to say they finally come back to me recently with some interim information. I'm just going to chase it up, and I think we're getting close to a sensible time for a meeting which might help inform the neighbourhood plan. So hopefully that will be helpful for that. I'm also very grateful for Howard for taking on a very long-standing project of mine. In fact, it dates back to my county councillor days of trying to sort out the old town hall parking area or loading area. And I'm grateful for the town council for agreeing with the proposals via the community board to make that happen. Hopefully that will make that space a little bit more pedestrian friendly as well as aesthetically more pleasing as well in due course. So thank you for helping us achieve that. And what else can I mention? Oh yes, we've had some useful updates from our transport people who deal with active travel. And I'm pleased to say that our active travel schemes for Buckingham are back on the table after a bit of a delay with other schemes kicking off in Aylesbury and others. So we are still trying to get the Silverstone cycleway up and running. Very useful feedback from our partners at Stowe School and Stowe National Trust. As you know, there's obviously some quite rural agricultural land between there and Silverstone, so that's obviously the final bit that the team are working on. But the Section 106 has been dealt with in terms of Silverstone Park, who are helping to contribute towards the northern element of it. So I am confident that subject to the right land being dealt with, we should be seeing that in our lifetimes, which would be really good. And for me personally, I'm really pleased because, of course, I helped initiate the Windsor to Buckingham cycleway. So this would mean we've got cycling opportunities from the north of the county to Windsor and the train station. So this will be really good news long term. And also, I know there's been strong support from Patrick Feely and Robin on trying to get the corporate connection to improve that cycling connection, and glad to see that's back on the agenda. And hopefully, again, if we can get the technicalities right and the funding signed off, hopefully that can happen before too long too. Yeah, that's one of the key things.
Thank you very much. You said in due course for the town hall loading area. Do you know how quickly that is like?
I think that's down to one of the committees ordered the.
Thank you. Oh, no.
The current situation is that it's taking over Buckinghamshire Council land. It will be part of the town council's planting contract, and the planters will arrive at the end of November. Sorry. So when they change planters, new ones will arrive outside the town hall. However, the owners of the business or the old town hall are anxious to get something sooner than that. And what I said was, if you want to do anything sooner, cost and the liaison is entirely down to you. From Buckinghamshire Council, we have no objection, but it won't be part of the contract with town council arranges. So hopefully, furthest time is the end of May, whenever the plants arrive within the town centre. Something might happen before that to make it look better.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's a Marty then.
Thank you, Andrew. Just a question to Councillor White. You mentioned the potholes in and around Steeple Claydon. Aren't HS2 and East West Rail a responsibility to make good the damage they've done to the roads, rather than taking the money from what's been allocated to us or the other parts of the country or the council?
You're quite right. Now I might have raced over that bit. So, so Greg Smith has been working really hard with the rail minister, Hugh Merriman, who you might know has links to this area. So he did actually come up to see, Greg did bring him up to the area to actually see for himself what was happening to the roads. And he has now got East West Rail and HS2 to deal with some of the key really bad roads within their budgets. So the pothole money that we're getting from government will not have to be wasted on the HS2 damage, but beyond the just general wear and tear that this winter has caused.
Yeah.
So hopefully that means the extra 2 million on top of the money that was already in the budget, which I think was around 5 million, means that there's a decent amount of money to get the roads back up to scratch this spring. Of course, as you probably all well know, and I've mentioned this many years, trying to fix roads properly at this time of year is pointless because it's too cold and too wet for the tarmac to stick properly, which is why you end up with these temporary repairs, which of course don't last long enough, but you don't want to spend good money on a proper repair that's going to fail as well. So you just want to do a quick one whilst you wait for the weather to improve. So hence we're just getting about close to when that will all kick off.
Thank you. So I've got Robin, then Fran, then John.
Yeah, just more happy, I had some correspondence on the school thing. It was quite caged correspondence. You know what I mean when I say caged correspondence, about where it could go and what it could do. It might be worth that I'll send you the correspondence I've got to see if it matches what you've got, and then we may have an exchange of emails to see whether the information is the same question. We might have been asked a different question. But on the planters, the events committee, which members here today worked with the community board on that, and on the cycleway, what I can say is there has been progression towards a solution to the railway walk, but that will be announced at some future date. And I am privately pursuing other issues within my area to do with other issues to do with the railway walk, to do with matters to do with those developments and stuff. So what I'm not going to do is go into detail, but people are following it up. It may seem that nothing's said. The reason nothing's said about it because we're not in a position where we can actually inform detail, but I can assure you all members are discussing this, and hopefully we'll come back with something sensible and progressive.
Fran.
Thank you. In terms of roads again, there's been a lot of developments up at the circuit and land opposite the circuit, and the roadway, the two bits of the dual carriageway piece in front of the circuit, there are huge amounts of potholes in that. I wonder whether bringing Councillor White's and Councillor Mordew's jurisdiction, they can see whether the developers in Silverstone are going to be able to be called upon to make good those pieces of road, because it's pothole dodging every morning. Thank you.
Thank you. And John.
Yeah, I've had reason to renew a couple of insurance policies in the last few weeks. And what's really good nowadays with insurance policies is you get what you paid last year, what you pay, what you pay this year. So you can do a direct comparison. And that helped me negotiate somebody off one policy, but not off the other, sadly. But nonetheless, it was very clear to see. We've all just recently had our council tax services, most of you here, perhaps everybody here. It shows the amount, it shows a percentage increase, but it doesn't show what it was last year. And I think it would be a good idea if the actual figures for last year were on the letter as well, just like with the insurance letters that we now get sent by, one of the good things that the government have done in the last few years. So could I ask at least one of our Shire councillors to take that idea back to the precepting authority, the Shire Council, and see whether there's scope to put that within the council tax letters for next year, so that we can actually see the amounts of money they're paying per precepting authority, including the adult social care element of the Shire Council as well. I think that would help people understand their bill better. I mean, there was one person on social media today who simply added up all the percentages and then divided by 6 and thought, why isn't that the same as what's actually quoted? We'll leave the mathematics of that aside, but I do think people would be helpful to have the amounts of last year and the amount this year. Could I ask them one of the Shire Councillors based on that?
Thank you. I don't know whether that's it's not exactly a motion that needs to be voted on, but it's an idea that maybe people can take.
Asking the question.
Who's like?
I've been trying to do revenue benefits, having member. And it is very, very strict on what you can and can't do. But I'm happy to take it back and see whether it's possible or not.
Right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
And I'm sure we're all very grateful to our 4 members who are on both authorities. I think it's really helpful. Thank you for all you do for our community and those beyond. Okay, can we move on to item 12? Recommendations from the Resources Committee, and it's a report from the Town Clerk, and the Town Clerk want to talk to that.
I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. I tried to write it into the report and it was very confusing, so I thought it might be easier to just talk it through. The first 3 topics that we're looking at, which are the financial regulations, the risk assessment, and the investment strategy policy, what I am recommending is that we agree them from now until the May meeting, which is the annual meeting on the 22nd of May. These are policies that would normally be reviewed at that meeting, so I want to keep everything in sync at that meeting. But due to the comments that came in from the internal auditor, who's auditing this year's accounts, there were some changes that they wanted making, which is why we really looked at these policies a little bit early. So obviously, if we just agree it without saying we're agreeing it until May, then they're valid for 6 months. It also gives us the added bonus of trying them out for 2 months, and just making sure that everything works and is all in order. The last one, which is the annual strategy, is something that the financial regs say I have to do at the start of the financial year. So because the council year and the financial year are different, it's important that the annual strategy is in place for the start of the financial year. So that one is for the next coming financial year and going to be renewed in May. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
I've read through the changes, helpfully highlighted in yellow and blue. I can't see anything wrong with any of the changes being proposed, so I propose that we agree on block the recommendations from the town clerk, unless someone's got some changes to that. But I think it's
I'll second that.
You'll second that. Of course, they all went through the resources committee already and have them properly scrutinised. So those, are we happy to move to a vote then?
Yeah.
So those in favour?
That's unanimous again.
Thank you very much. And then moving on to item 13, Devolved Services. It's to agree to accept the 9% uplift. Bear with me while I find the right page.
49.
49.
Yeah.
So it's recommended that members agree to accept the 9% devolved services uplift for 2023-2024. Can we just vote on that properly?
Yep.
Those in favour?
Unanimous.
Yes, okay, unanimous, thank you. And then item 14, another motion from councillor Stuchbury.
Yeah, I'll speak to you. Thank you. As part of the effort to improve efficiency, this motion proposes the town council agreed to renew the staff and confidential matters committee. Instead, the resource committee, if required, to support the town clerk would meet privately in session, standing orders and others. Policies would be amended in accordance with the decision. And it hasn't met for a very, very long time. That's why I brought it. It may be other people disagree, but I brought it to discuss.
Thank you, councillor Collins.
It hasn't met for a long time, fortunately, because we haven't had any problems. But I don't agree with disbanding it, because the whole purpose of having that small committee was things could be heard from just a number of people, therefore leaving lots of other councillors to be drawn in if need be, which has happened before and probably would happen again, hopefully not in the too near future. But we do need, you know, it can, hopefully, any matters can be sorted out very quickly. But then you can't just have the Fact and Resources Committee all looking at that, because most of us are on the full council and resources, there's an awful lot of us. You'd leave no one to be impartial, to join in if you needed that support.
Just,
Thank you very much.
we haven't had it seconded, Madam Mayor, so.
No, we haven't. Do we have a seconder for this proposal? You're seconding it, John. Okay, thank you. I've got Lisa who wanted to speak, then you, John.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with everything that Geraldine has said. And it's good that the committee hasn't met. That means it's working. The office is working well. That's what we want. But it was set up specifically so that there was some impartiality if need be. And there are a lot of us on resources. So I think keeping it as a plug is a good idea. And it can't hurt by keeping it. It's been running all this time and it's not hurt the council in any way, shape or form it being there. So I think it's a good idea to have it just in case.
Thank you. John.
The thing is that with the committee as it currently is constituted, is that a static number, a very small number of councillors who sit on that committee, and there may well be an issue that comes up that for various reasons those members who happen to be on the committee could not actually deal with because of maybe some conflicts of interest or involvement in some shape or form. I think what this motion tonight is about is saying, well, let's keep it flexible. If an issue arises, we can quickly convene a confidential session of the Resources Committee without going into the detail, but select an appropriate small group of people who would look into it that wouldn't have any conflicts of interest. And then that group could then meet ad hoc, resolve the issue, bring back their recommendations to the Resources Committee, again, all in confidential committee, and ensure that there was robust procedures around making sure that there would always be some councillors who could act as a appeals committee as well. The problem with the existing structure is it ossifies the councillors involved. And I think, given that we don't know what might come up, I think it's important to remain flexible in who might need to work in a small group around a certain issue. So that's the reason why Rob and I have been talking, that we think that it's no longer appropriate. It was appropriate at one point in our time, but it's no longer appropriate and no longer needed. And we've done several times in terms of calling emergency meetings. Again, no problem with doing that. We've had to do that several times this year already of a variety of issues. So that's the proposal. There would need to be some detail worked out in terms of the implications of standing orders and other terms of reference and so forth. And this is, in a sense, a starting point for that kind of detail that we would expect the town clerk to work on, and then bring back those full procedures for a final ratification, if you like. But in principle, the kind of standing committee with a set number of councillors, I think is no longer appropriate and not flexible enough.
Thank you.
I agree with Councillor Collins on that committee, and it does come in useful when confidential items come up. And also, I fail to see how the efficiency of a committee that doesn't meet can actually be improved. So I would suggest you leave it as it is. It's not costing any money, it's not taking up any resources or staff time, but it is there because we require something that has to be confidential, and it has been very useful in the past when problems have arisen.
Yes, thank you. Town clerk, do you have any lights to throw on this proposal?
Both options are equally valid. Lots of councils have a set staffing committee that meets confidentially. And again, resources do have a reason for it, so that's valid as well. I would really highly recommend not setting up an ad hoc committee. I think
that could potentially lead to lots of trouble, because it can look as though you have set up a committee deliberately in order to fulfil a purpose. So if you wanted to sack me, which is probably the most likely use of this committee, it is, because most stuff can be dealt with at staff level.
Yeah.
If you set up a ad hoc committee specifically to look at sacking me, I would be definitely taking legal advice from my union, whether you have set up a special committee for that. So either resources or have a staffing committee, but I was very much against raising one specifically for purpose.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move to a vote? Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, am I going to be the last speaker?
No.
Anybody else?
I just had.
Oh, sorry,
In which case I'll wait.
Right, well, I'm just gonna say, you know, with John pointing out that some councillors might have, you know, not need to be on that committee because they could have reasons why not. We have always said we would draw in someone else if that happened.
Yeah.
So, and the other reason was having that small staffing committee. It enabled in the past the person who needed the support to come forward, not feeling they were going to be in front of a lot of people. They could just be in front of that select few people to talk to and get the advice and support from. We haven't sacked a town clerk, but we did have to call the committee because it so happened that the chairman of resources and the town clerk just disregarded all of our policies and code of conduct, and that's why we needed to intervene at that time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harvey and then back to Councillor Stuchbury.
I think, Councillor Collins has made the argument that I was saying as well. Because if extra can be drawn in, that's essentially what I was proposing.
Yeah.
So it's no different in that sense. But I don't think it should be a small group that does that. It should be the resources committee that does that if needs be. But I also hear the town clerk says, I think this is a matter that needs some serious thought. And at the very least, we should be referring back to the town clerk as to what is the most suitable method now. But I think to simply carry on as is not tenable in my view. And I think we should be making a decision now. And well, perhaps we should rephrase the proposal. Maybe to ask the town clerk to examine the options that bring back a paper there. Something along those lines. So we don't make a final decision tonight one way or the other.
It's a different motion, that's a different motion, that isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it is a different motion. I'm proposing it to change the motion.
So
Given what people
so
said.
he was the seconder, so I don't know how the proposer.
Well, yeah, I know, but I'm the second, so I can suggest that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what problem it is.
Yeah, I'm listening to the debate, and the whole point that I brought it today is because you've all had the reason with the stimulus for it was that we all had our committee things for it, and I thought that it would be really stupid to bring something after we've agreed committees. It just looks really stupid.
Yeah, that's true.
And that was the timing of it. I've sort of been watching the fact that it hadn't done anything for a long time and thinking that, you know, we hadn't needed any. And I also consider the fact that most of the employment things would be done by the town clerk. I'm also conscious of what the town clerk said about the point of appointments and whatever. But I think those structures, if it was agreed, could be worked out within, recommended it back to resources. But what I would think that if you did make a recommendation, you really couldn't come into the following year because, quite frankly, it's not proper because you need to have standing committees agreed. So that's why it was coming where it is. I could have brought it at any point, but I noticed that we were all asked for committees, and so I put it in here. I've had various discussions with various people about committees on various times. And that's my purpose of putting it. I think the best thing with this is that we actually put the motion as it is and allow people to vote on it. I mean, there's a good points made all round. Passionate points and points of disagreement and points of relevance, and the town clerk worrying about taking needing to find the union, which I'm really supportive of unions. So, you know, You know, I'm imagine I would export you to go to your union as a union man. So no, I wouldn't disagree with that. And I'm really glad we got union 3 times into the meeting. But on that basis, I think we should move the vote and allow it to fall or be agreed or not agreed on the wording that it is. I think that's the most sensible to do. I think cobbling together any amendment to this and whatever complicates matters. Council carries on. If members want to do something different in the future, they can bring it back. But I think then it shouldn't really happen for at least 12 months because we'll establish a committee and it should be dealt by the resources committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor White had his hand up before.
I think opposing the motion speaks. I did say if anybody else, but if one wants to speak, it needs to.
So the point of order is that the chairman hadn't drawn the debate to a close, so I think it's rather odd for you to call for the vote when you knew I wanted to speak.
I didn't realise. I did apologise.
Yeah, and I thought upon you as I've probably not done it in the best order, but Councillor White, would you like to say what you were going to say?
Appreciate your indulgence. When I saw this on the agenda, I was a bit agnostic as to why this was coming to full council. Here in the debate, I think our residents would be disappointed to hear us wasting time on a motion like this. It's not fixing anything. There's no issues that have arisen with this committee to bring this to the full council. I think Councillor Stuchbury has wasted the full council's time to bring this motion, so I will oppose it.
Yeah.
I think that is a statement which can't be supported. It's really actually council is for council to propose something. Whether the council discusses for a long time is up to individual members. And at no point did I wish to prevent you from speaking. I took what called at the point I was called. And I'm sorry if you took offence at me. And I think it's reasonable to put something to the council. And I explained myself diligently about the timing of it. And if members disagree with it, that's also very reasonable. And if you can take the basis of wasting time with council, who judges that, that is superfluous.
Go to the vote, please, Mayor.
That's what I suggested earlier, but
So we'll move to the vote. Can we, those in favour of this motion, please show. And those against? So that motion falls. Thank you. Moving on to item 15, action list. Is there anybody wanting to ask any questions about any of the items on the action list? Or Councillor Willett?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I see on the action list the motion number 773-20 /21. Is there any update on the river pollution letter with regards to the case number of the Environment Agency?
Thank you. I know Councillor White was dealing with this. Can you have any?
Funny enough, this was the line I wanted to bring up as well. Unfortunately, the Environment Agency and the law does work very slowly in these instances. I just wanted to clarify that the updates is letters sent to Councillor White. I presume that means the letter from the EA sent to Councillor White. We're now sharing this council. Unfortunately, there is no update since that letter. But I do keep pushing and hopefully we'll have something soon.
Thank you. And this, I think several hands went up, but I didn't. Yeah, Councillor Cole.
Thank you. Yes, I'd refer to the last item on the first page, which is Morton Road Phase 3. Just to update the council, it does look as if Buckinghamshire Council is going to proceed with giving approval once all the Section 106 agreements conditions have been met. They have uploaded them today, 160 pages of them, which covered 16 different items. Councillor Stuchbury, to his credit, managed to persuade Buckinghamshire Council Planning to put them all into one document. Our thanks for that, Robin, because it was impossible to read it. 160 pages of agreements. Anyway, following on from that, you will be aware that our Member for Parliament, Greg Smith, asked for this to be called in at the end of October. We haven't heard back yet. I did write to him last week to ask if there's any progress, if Mr. Gove, who is still the Secretary of State for Planning, if he has come back yet, and I'm just waiting to hear on that. So whether it will be called or not remains to be seen. I notice also here it says that our formal complaint to Buckinghamshire Council was made because we believe the level of scrutiny of the Strategic Sites Committee was insufficient. Town Clerk, could you update us on where we got to with that?
Yes, that line shouldn't be on there. The following meeting, it was agreed that we weren't going to do that because it was brought into the admin and we were going to late.
Right, thank you.
The line shouldn't be on the action list as well.
Thank you very much.
This is a long-standing thing. It's not even got a date on it now. So it's that long-standing. It's not even dated. Public health meetings discuss health provision in Buckingham, and I think we've covered that quite a lot tonight in the sense of what we've done ongoing. And this dates back. We're now on the third town clerk, right? Councillor Strain Clark. I proposed that we had a meeting to discuss it. So it is ongoing. It's definitely accurate. It is ongoing. That's very accurate. It is ongoing. But I think at some point we need to bring this to a committee to discuss how we actually. I think it's unfair to ask the town clerk, who's the third town clerk, to actually get this. If we have a discussion about what we actually want out of that meeting, and maybe it's appropriate at this stage to take it back to environment to discuss where we would go with it if we were going to do it at all. I think that's the most sensible bit, because saying ongoing, it gives the impression that town clerk's done nothing, but she can't do anything because many of the other parties aren't willing to talk. So I think it's unfair. So I think we take it back to environment when I think health members agree, where health is an aspect, and let the environment committee decide how they wish to pursue it. So that if they decide, yes, we do need to do X, we'll do X. But if they don't, we can extinguish it off the action list. Because we are very much talking about it. On the river pollution, I concur with Councillor White about the awkwardness of these things. We did get one case, which I think several meetings ago, which came forward. My friends in the agricultural industry made me aware of that. And that came forward. We know one case. I think the case that everyone's referring to is the 2018 case. I think that's what Councillor White, unless he correct me, following to do with the chemical pollution to the river. Alleged. I don't think it smelled pretty much like there was chemical. Well, everyone alleged chemical pollution to the river. The fish allegedly died.
No, they definitely did.
Allegedly died. I think to his credit, he's trying to trench on that, and not through his little effort. He the environment agencies to be able to talk at will and stop at will. I don't know where we go with that. That's something that may be at a later date. When Warren's sorted all energies on it, we need to go back to the environment committee to discuss again to see how we progress it, because no one seems to be winning on that. And on the Mayoral Road, I didn't realise that I passed that correspondence on to the planning clerk. I didn't realise that that you'd had it, because it irritated me because I couldn't actually read the stuff on the Mayoral Road 3, and being dyslexic, I find it really difficult to read stuff anyway. And I was actually losing the will to live. And I was trying to follow up the very points that I'd actually gone to committee to raise. And to tell you the truth, I'm still not really anywhere near it. Now I've got it in one document, but I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not claiming whatever. And it was my own frustrations that I happened to do it. And when I noticed that I'd got it because of my disabilities, I asked for it to be put into one document, and it was purely for my personal. And I thought, being as it helped me, I'd just forward it on to the planning clerk, but I thought she might be having as many problems as me. Probably not as many as me, but she would be having problems with it in so many documents. That's how it ended up with here.
Thank you. Councillor Willett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, again. With minute number 649, the motion from Councillor Harvey, is there any plan to invite the open spaces group to an event at Buckingham Town Council? I think it would be a really good progressive sort of thing to do.
Councillor Harvey, have you got any knowledge of it, if they have people available for that kind of possibility?
Forgive me, what item are we talking about?
Which about the open spaces society. That probably will come off the action.
Well, the action's been prepared.
Yes.
We'll read it.
But if we're a member, then yeah, it'd be great to have a speaker come along, yeah.
So you're spring green.
I think the idea was to get some view on whether we can create more, I can't think of the word, like we have around the church, what's that called?
Green space?
No, it's the
Right, stage. Railings.
the village green, whether we can create more village greens and therefore put in place protection against development in areas where we don't want development.
Common land.
That was the promise, wasn't it?
Common land.
Yeah.
Well, it's not quite, it's in the bridge, but there's a second thing to the village green.
Okay.
And the site could say that they have had people create village greens, so it'd be a speaker about that. I think would be most useful. I did a full council into planning.
Okay.
That's appropriate.
Obviously, it's not an agenda item. I would suggest it was something that the neighbourhood plan would also want to look at, whether or not the creation of a village green is a way of protecting things.
Thank you. Councillor Stuchbury.
Yeah, I mean, it is, the last meeting, it was quite simple. The motion went through really very quickly because it was just simple about signing up to an organisation. I think as it's green and it's whatever, you know, if there's any discussion to go on about it, it should, as the Deputy Chair of Environment raised it, we should bring it to the Environment Committee at the next meeting and lead on it and tell us where we're going to go with it, because it's a reasonable thing. I mean, there are committee structures to do these things. Not full council shouldn't have to do everything.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda, but if the Deputy Chair wants to environment, we should put it on the environment agenda and lead on the topic of discussion thereafter. That's the appropriate way to do it, because we can't really cobble together something in this meeting.
Thank you. If I can mention now, item 557, it says update to be doing chair's announcements, but I might as well do it because it's we're on the action list. We are having a civic service for the coronation at Buckingham Parish Church at 10:30 AM on Sunday, May the 7th. The Lord Lieutenant is coming and participating, but it's a Buckingham event, it's not a county event. And I've already had a planning meeting with the rector. So I hope everybody will be there who is able to be there on May the 7th. Thank you. Anything else on the action list? Case will move on to item 16, reports from representatives on outside bodies. We've got the two that were attached to the agenda from AV Pub, which I don't think anybody from Buckingham Town Council was at. But the minutes were quite helpful and that's the one.
Just on that, I was asked to supply the users group some information on BART, Buckingham Area Rural Transport, and the minibus, because there were some misconceptions raised at an earlier meeting about what it was and how it worked. So I was glad to be able to set the record straight with the transport users group. We do have a community bus in Buckingham. We also launched recently a very small disabled friendly car, which will be easier to drive for people who didn't want to drive a full-size minibus. They are located here in Buckingham after some post-COVID manoeuvring of vehicles around North Bucks. So I'm really pleased to say that BART is here in Buckingham, available to use for any group and also any private group to help fundraise as well. And I don't know why there was a misconception about it, but I'm glad that the record has been set straight and the users group has helped support us with that.
Thank you. Any other contributions?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It's just more of a word of thanks, really, as I serve on the Buckingham Town Youth Centre Committee. As a council representative, I would like to minute our thanks for the long-standing service of Katie Clemenson. She's provided many young people with a sense of, leadership and also a place of belonging within our Buckingham Town Youth Centre. She unfortunately ends her tenure this Easter, I'm correct. And I wish that she has every success moving on. And also the person who takes over from her has every success as she did in that post.
Thank you. Are there any other reports? Councillor Stuchbury.
Yeah, I'll just say that I'll try to get you, which just didn't meet that often, but we can't give minutes till we agreed, and there are a set of minutes which have been agreed. I work with Cllr to see that if they're too confidential in those minutes, that they can be provided, because there are some aspects to it that you see the open discussion and whatever. I think I won't go into it, but I think they're not here, and it's a long time since you've had any, because we don't meet very often because there's not much to discuss at the moment. But they are made public, I think, at this point, to show that we actually do discuss something. If you know what I mean.
It's not a suggestion, you need to expand it.
Morris, you are being very. That's the wrong meeting if you want to discuss that, Rod. You want to bring that proposal to the next meeting, you can do so. And this meeting, and actually, we couldn't actually disband it from here anyway. I'm sorry. But I do laugh at you for saying it, I really do.
Items 17, mayoral engagements and deputy mayoral engagements. Can we note those?
Thank you, because you've done an extensive list of things, so thank you very much.
It was over quite a long period.
Yeah, but still, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And the only other chair's announcement is reminded it's the annual town meeting on Thursday, and it would be good to have a full turnout of councillors at that meeting. It has been disappointing that councillors have been absent from certain events, for instance, the Commonwealth Day flag raising. I was the only town councillor there.
To work.
Yeah, I know it was during the day and councillors are working.
I was actually working on a report to do with dementia.
But
so,
I know there are all sorts of reasons, but it is disappointing when people turn up. And I hope that the events in the future, we've already mentioned the comedy night on Saturday and the annual town meeting. It'd be good to see all of you there for those events. So the next meetings, the extraordinary meeting, do you want to, shall I? Yeah.
Those are going to be a very brief, hopefully, really brief, extraordinary for the next interim council. This is purely because we need to have a specifically convened meeting in order to reward somebody a free man or free woman in the city. So if we are going to do that with an open session, but if we are going to do that with any of the people that have been proposed, including someone that full council voted for last year, that I don't believe we've had a specially convened meeting for it. So legally we need that, and 2/3 we need to vote for in order to make somebody a free man or free woman. So the one for Mr. Bloomfield lasted 4 minutes. I don't expect there will be particularly long or controversial meetings.
Okay.
Not sure.
And then the annual statutory meeting full council on the 22nd of May. And that completes the public session, but we need to move into confidential session. Can we resolve to move everybody? Yeah.